Aren't you guys curious what the most played MMOs are right now? Apparently it's a mid-year update, so I think this is like the perfect time to figure that one out. So let's go ahead and watch. I already have a few thoughts of what it is, like WoW or Final Fantasy, obviously. But from there, I'm not too sure. Maybe Lost Ark? Those are my thoughts, at least. But let's go ahead and see. Does one's human count?
Back. It's Lucky here, and it's that time of the year where we look at
I
the
don't know if
MMO
one's human
genre and
counts.
go over the most played MMOs right now. A lot has changed since the last time I made this video.
A lot
We've seen
has
some
changed.
MMOs move way up on the list and some move way down. This video is strictly
Sorry, I'm
by
like
the
trying to
numbers,
move
which
myself
means I'm not
on
ranking
cam.
them by quality, simply by active player base size.
Active
which
player
MMOs
base.
are dying, which MMOs
course.
are thriving. Let's find out. Number 15, New World, playable on PC.
So wait, does he do... I guess that... Yeah, okay. So 15 is the lowest population then.
And soon to come to console. This survey is coming at a bad time for New World. It's currently experiencing its worst month in its history, but it hasn't come out of nowhere. The game has been bleeding players.
I heard New World is just like a game no one plays. Everyone complains about it, except like maybe Asmongold. But like, I don't play the game myself. I don't know much about the game. I just hear people complaining about it. That's it. Like, I don't know anything about it.
For some
I have
time now,
no
sliding
opinion.
another 4 spots from number 11 on this list to number 15 in the last 6 months alone, and presently averaging just 4,800 players.
Ooh, that's actually really low. Whew. Games from like 2015 probably have those numbers. Ooh, what the heck? Oh my goodness, what did they do?
On Steam. Just 6 months ago, it was at 19,000 concurrent players on Steam. What happened? Well, New World is currently making a not so smooth transition to console at the moment. It seems that the focus on bringing the game to console has led to a massive drought in content for the experienced players sitting at the end game. Combine that with the fact that they are advertising it as a multiplayer action RPG instead of an MMO, and longtime players of the game are feeling a bit rattled. Is New World a bad game? I don't think so. As far as MMOs go, New World is one of the most fairly monetized ones out there, featuring very little in the way of things that could be...
Okay, you say that, but why is no one playing it then? Just because they finished playing it? Like, is that actually it? I need someone else's opinion on this, because that does not sound right.
Considered pay to win. The game is buy to play with an optional battle pass. New World features a massive seamless open world for you to explore, and that's where it really shines. It shines when you're out exploring, questing, and gathering, and all of the things that you stumble into along the way. It's always really struggled when it came to group content and getting people into
Game
that
looks
content.
nice though.
The game features some of the best crafting progression out of any MMO. Every tree, bush, or rock can be gathered to level up your crafting and gathering. New World features the trinity of tank, healer, and...
Wait, let me... I want to see the weapons. Do you get to use all these weapons on one character? Let's see. Flail on shield, I would not use that. Void Gauntlet sounds pretty cool. Ice Gauntlet sounds actually a lot better than Void Gauntlet. Life Staff, probably I'd use that. Great Sword, yeah. Great Axe, yep. Warhammer, maybe. Bow, yes. Hatchet, no. Rapier, yes. Spear, it's a bit iffy. Depends on how well it works. But that's interesting. I like these weapons.
Your crafting
More than
and
50%.
New World features the trinity of tank, healer, and DPS, and has some incredibly challenging dungeons and a mutation system for those dungeons that basically acts as a Mythic Plus system from WoW. This content can be fun, but also difficult.
I don't know what that is. What is a Mythic Plus from WoW? Please explain, because I do not understand.
To find groups for, especially with the current player count. As for its transition to console, well, it felt like this game was perfectly suited for that with its limited number of abilities that you can have at any given moment. It looks like the developers sacrificed a lot of the PC player count to get the game to console. Hopefully this is a gamble that plays off for them in the long run.
Personally, that sucks. Like, I hate that. But also, makes sense. If they're trying to just like get their numbers back up, what they're doing isn't wrong at like a business standpoint. I ideals and philosophy wise for like the community though, no.
And they're able to bring those players back. Holding on to spot number 14, EVE Online is a dependable old MMO released all the way back in 2003, but still being actively supported by both its developers and its fans.
I literally just said that. I literally said this about New World. It can't even keep pace with like the older generation games.
EVE Online is an MMO where your goal is to build and upgrade a powerful spaceship so that you can join up with others to vie for control of the most profitable sectors of space. EVE Online is free to play with the option to pay money to do things like access more spaceships.
Wasn't it EVE Online the one where it had like the, what was it, those insane prices for the DLC for ships and stuff? It was this game, right? It was EVE Online.
It also has an optional sub, and this optional sub is the most expensive subscription on the list, sitting at $20 per month. As with most optional subs, fans
no, that was Star Citizen, huh?
If you intend to fully enjoy the game, the sub is not so optional. EVE Online has a fantastic character creator, but that matters very little as you'll rarely see your character. Your focus is on your ship, and it's what you'll spend most of your time
one or the other. It's really hard to tell the
Online,
difference for me.
Players form their own alliances.
I don't play
and
this.
Then battle for control of the universe.
I hate
PvP
these
in
kinds
EVE
of
Online
games.
is high stakes, as when your ship is destroyed, it does not simply respawn. No, you must rebuild it again. The many hours, days, and months worth of materials it took to build that ship are now gone.
And that's why
EVE
I
Online
dislike.
is often called the spreadsheet simulator, as many players engage in tracking materials and costs diligently. CCP Games
I also
has
don't like
finally
all the
embraced this and
what's it called? I don't like all the menu systems and like the details and spreadsheets that you have to look at, like all the data spreadsheets you're gonna have to look at just to play the game a little bit, only for you to constantly get reset. If I wanted to do that, I'd rather just look at stocks and play the stock game. You know what I mean?
has added an integrated spreadsheet into the game. EVE Online was never the biggest MMO, but it and its fans have kept it on the list for over 2 decades. Next up, slipping one spot, is SWTOR, or Star Wars: The Old Republic. Launched in 2011 and available on PC. BioWare has handed this game off to a new developer to keep it up and running as they move on to new projects. Typically, this does not bode well for the future of an MMO. SWTOR launched in 2011.
Bro, they abandoned the game. What are you talking about?
This is another MMO that is now free to play with an optional sub. That optional sub will unlock a lot.
There's
of
no
things,
way it's going to become better now.
Access to all
it's
of
just
the
going
game's zones
to stagnate
forever, even if you only sub for 1 month and then cancel. Veterans of the game will tell you that that's exactly what you want to do if you want
just
to
like in
fully
Final Fantasy.
SWTOR. SWTOR is probably most known for its amazing class stories that immerse you in the world of Star Wars. The class stories are fully voice acted and are incredible.
So these are cutscenes from in the game though. These are nice, like really nice.
Well fleshed out and written. Perhaps the most unique part of these stories is that your choices actually have an impact on the ending of your story, with up to 3 different endings possible for each class. This is definitely one of the coolest parts of SWTOR, hands down. Nowadays, SWTOR is largely a single player experience, and if you've never done it before,
I wouldn't be surprised. Just bring your one friend.
Fan of the Star Wars universe.
Although I feel like even if you brought someone along, a lot of the games now, what they do is make all the enemies weaker than you. So much so that like you could just slam through them all by yourself, and there's no point of bringing like a teammate. They just want you to like be able to get to the end with everyone else, which I don't think is a good idea for any game. Even Monster Hunter did it, where they just give you good gear so you can speed through to wherever the new content is. It's like, bro, if I wanted to get to the new content right away, I would have definitely have just like, you know, bought the game earlier or something. Unless, you know, you couldn't afford it at the time. It's a bit more understandable, but more so than not, it's like, I want to enjoy the experience of what made the game good. I want to understand the journey along the path to there. And if their solution is to like dumb it down, nerfing enemies, buffing us in order to get to there, I'm just like, why? If this is what it takes in order to go forward, then you should have just like changed the entirety of the gameplay aspect from the get-go. Like, you should have known that through time, the game is just gonna go down. So what kind of mechanics can you put instead? Like, I feel like too many people chase a certain ideal and dream without looking at it realistically and what's obviously gonna happen. It's like, of course, people are not gonna play the same game for the rest of eternity, so try to curate it to where, of course, there's going to be a drop off after some time. Instead of like, I know that this is their solution for it, to curate the problem, but it's not a good one. I'd rather have a long solo experience. I don't know if I'm just the only one with this hot take. Because, like, let's say I'm not actually solo. I want to play this game with a friend because it says it's a multiplayer game, like on its advertisement, right? Everyone's at endgame, but you're like, oh, well, no, there's no one around. Sure, like, they make it easy so you can get through the content and whatnot, but also, hear me out, what if they made the content, like, still usable and friendly to where you can still bring in other players no matter what? Like, I bring in a friend and they would feel like they're being productive with you instead of just like following you around while you one-shot enemies, because that's not fun. It won't get other people to get into the game as fast. It just like brings in like a small number all at once, and it's just annoying to me.
You'll get your Star Wars music, art, stories, and lightsabers. The game features 8 classes, split 4 and 4 between Jedi and Sith factions.
Man, I went on
with a
tangent
lot
for
of
that
between
one.
the
What the
classes
heck?
on each side, almost as if one side is a near mirror image of the other side. It's not a bad game to pick up and play with a friend, as it does feature level scaling, which has unfortunately resulted in the questing experience becoming...
Oh. Okay, so, you know, when I went on that rant, I kind of assumed that this game would do that, would not, you know, do the thing that I said. But also, I was talking about other games, by the way, not just like this game. I'm talking about like all games in general that kind of do it. But the fact that it has level scaling is actually pretty nice. That's a better way to curate a game.
perhaps too easy. So you'd definitely be jumping in for the story and not the challenge. The game's population has definitely been sliding over the years, albeit slowly, but now the developer has given the game away, which means its future has never been more uncertain. We'll watch this one closely moving forward. And if you're someone that enjoys MMOs, be sure to subscribe
Apparently
to the
it's
channel
still not
so
as
that you're
good,
kept
though.
up to date on all the latest and greatest MMO news.
Oh no,
Number
don't do
12,
it.
Wizard 101.
Oh my god. It's actually funny. I tried to play this game back in like, I think 2009, I believe. Like, I wanted to try this game, but every time I tried to try it, I always would get to like almost trying it and then I forget about it. And never in my life have I ever played this. But I can tell you how many times I attempted to try to play it. It was at least 15.
2008 on PC and web browsers. I didn't previously include Wizard 101 on this list, but it turns out this game has enough players to make the cut. Currently sitting at number 12, Wizard 101 was a gateway into the MMO scene for many children around 2008 when it launched. It's still going strong today and still getting new updates regularly. The game lists itself as free to play, but it would be more honest to call it free to try, as you'll need a sub in order to access all the game's best and most relevant content.
Oh,
it's definitely a unique
that
entry
sucks.
featuring a card collecting style of combat, but it does also include your more usual MMO
I did see my
staples
friend
like
play this,
housing
though.
and fishing. And despite its humble beginnings, it's still sitting here comfortably, holding down the number 12th spot 16 years after its
Wow,
initial release.
good
And
job,
next up,
Wizard.
moving up one spot from number 12 to number 11
This
is
game
Albion Online.
sucks.
Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm already burnt out on all of these MMOs, perhaps it's time for you to check out the sponsor of today's video, Neverness to Evernet.
But this game's not
You
even
can
out.
pre-register for the game right now by clicking the link in
Pre-register?
the description below. In this fast-paced urban RPG,
Bruh, I
built
feel like
in
this
Unreal
game's not
Engine
even
5,
gonna
you
come
can
out
explore a
for like another year or two.
massive supernatural metropolis brimming with
It's a good
wonders
game,
and
though. It looks
extraordinary
nice.
creatures. You'll use
Concept
your
is
powers
great.
to take down a
If you guys watched some of my vids, I covered this game like 2 or 3 times. And like there was one about the developer update, one that had the gameplay trailer plus cinematic, and I think there was only 2, huh? There might have been a 3rd one, but I don't remember. But basically, I was talking about the gameplay, the ideals and ambitions they have, as well as what they should totally add or work upon, and things that may or may not work as well. But it looks pretty interesting.
Heart racing. While you explore, you'll be able to buy and deck out your home and make it truly your own. But your house isn't the only thing you can customize. You can customize your car.
Need for Speed. Let's go.
Just like GTA, or use anti-gravity abilities to explore the urban landscapes. In NTE, the world is packed with lively events to ensure that this open world game is anything but.
You know what I find interesting? Everyone, including the devs, call it NTE. Which I feel like makes it so much harder for people to find, because there's so many things with the, I don't know what you call it, short abbreviations, but the full name is actually Neverness to Everness, or was it? Yeah, that was it. Neverness to Everness was the name of the game, which kind of sounds dumb too, and I feel like they should have come up with a better name, but I'm hoping their naming sense does not hold back the game itself.
But empty. The high quality graphics and amazing artistic design gives you a fantastic visual experience, enhancing the wide variety of companions that you'll encounter on your journey. You'll even be able to deepen your relationship with those companions by getting to know them better through events in the game. NTE is developed by Hoda Studio, a subsidiary of the well-known Perfect World Games, who will be publishing the game globally. What other game lets you customize your house, customize cars like GTA, and gives you anti-gravity abilities to explore sprawling metropolis?
I don't know, it's not like GTA to me. It's more like Need for Speed Underground, if anything.
Is all built in the incredibly powerful Unreal Engine 5. Get ready to explore this unforgettable, massive urban world and unravel all of the mysteries within. So don't miss out on the chance to play this epic game at launch. Click the link in the description below to pre-register for the game now. It's completely free, so you've got nothing to lose. Massive
I should probably pre-register. I keep forgetting.
Games for being kind enough to sponsor this video. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for listening. Now let's get back to the video.
Back to the game.
Launched
That's
in
actually out.
2017 to PC,
this
Mac,
game
iOS,
sucks.
Albion Online is a fantasy sandbox MMO RPG.
Okay, I will say this. I tried this game for like a good 10 hours, maybe 15 hours. I like the PvE part of the game until you get chicken blocked into going into a PvP zone. It kind of feels like I don't know if you guys have played RuneScape, but there's this thing in RuneScape where the whole area is PvE, but then there's this like zone border where if you walk past it, it becomes PvP. And there's actually some quest where you have to go over there in order to complete those quests, but you're also entering a PvP zone, right? And you will get cucked and lose your stuff. Same applies to Albion Online. And that's why I don't like.
7 years ago now. It's free to play, but it's also 100% pay to win. And it's not for the faint of heart. Albion Online is a full loot PvP MMO. Now, because it is full loot, that means that you can let some.
Also, did you guys know there was actually a point where they're like PvE friendly? Like they said that at some point. I think it was on their Steam or something. But this game is not PvE friendly. Just for like a beginning, sure, but like, whew, if you want to continue the game, main the game, play it casually for a while, no, you can't.
Someone else pay to win and then kill them and take all of their gear. Fortunately, if you lose a full loot PvP fight, it's not too terribly difficult to recover from. Most players are only running around with gear that's worth about 1% of their net worth. So once you've been looted, all you have to do is head to the auction house, click a button, and it repurchases your previous loadout. The game features a pretty massive progression tree where the more you use something, the more you level it up and unlock things down that branch of the tree. Albion Online does feature an optional sub that will greatly reduce the grind. The game's population population has been steadily increasing since 2018, helping it climb up to the number 11th spot on the most played MMOs list.
Why?
If you're
Well,
looking for
I'll tell
something
you why. It's
different
because
and
it's
high stakes
PvP.
that feels like a MOBA
It's core
and an
PvP.
MMO merged into one beautiful creature,
That's why
Puppet
it's
Online
popular.
might be a great choice for you. Next up, we have WoW Classic.
Anything
Seeing
competitive
the
is
largest
popular.
population decline of all the MMOs on this list since the last time I updated.
Like 9-1. It competitive games are more popular, and I hate it. But people just have so much competitive energy inside of them.
This is partly because of how well it was doing 6 months ago when we checked in on it at the launch of Season of Discovery. It had experienced a
I don't like
massive
WoW.
population
I played a
boom,
little bit and
whereas
I always
now
log
the
out.
Classic community has largely experienced what they wanted to in Season of Discovery, and they're waiting for more and new content. Players tend to come back to WoW Classic and devour the content for a week or two before wandering off to play other games again. In March of 2017, Blizzard finally caved and announced that they would be making World of Warcraft Classic. World of Warcraft Classic launched.
The reason why I dislike World of Warcraft and stuff is because of just like how the core mechanics of the game of how you play bother me. I'm more of the action RPG type. So like action RPG MMO-esque is more up my alley. Not like the tab target then press a couple buttons. So like I would do Black Desert Online over World of Warcraft kind of thing. But I would not play either.
Massive appeal, much to the surprise of Blizzard, who had thought there was no way players would ever want a classic server. It's impressive that a spin-off for a version of a 2-decade-old MMO sits this high on the list, and this isn't the only time you'll see that happen. World of Warcraft Classic was a return to WoW before its controversial additions like raid finders, excessive cash shops, and the WoW token. WoW Classic is the classic MMO experience through and through. Slower combat and a strict adherence to the trinity of tank, healer, and DPS. Players actually have to use crowd control abilities and still have to try to avoid aggroing too many mobs. It's going to be interesting to see how long this nostalgia-fueled trip through classic WoW can maintain its steam, and how many seasons it will be able to continue getting players to return for. If we look at the trends for WoW Classic, we can see its explosive launch in 2019, followed by a moderate level of interest in the months and the years to follow. Interest fell off heavily, but the addition of Season of Discovery was able to bring a lot of those players back. Season of Discovery interest has largely waned for now, and players seem to be just about done finishing up their Panda experience as well. Will we someday see WoW Classic take the route of old school RuneScape and carve its entirely own path, completely forking from the story of retail WoW? I don't think this is just a possibility. I think it's a necessity if they ever want to see players stick around for more than 2 weeks at a time. WoW Classic was number 4 on this list the last time I made it, but it slid all the way down to number 10 now. Its population is still impressive for a spin-off of an existing MMO, and further proof that there's a massive appetite for the classic MMO experience out there. Holding strong at number 9 is RuneScape, also known as RuneScape
I kind of saw that one coming.
A fantasy MMO RPG originally built with Java to be played inside of your browser. My friends were playing this MMO on library computers all the way back in the early 2000s. Over 20 years later, this game is still outrageously popular.
Nice.
So let's take a look at it. RuneScape is interesting because there's RuneScape and then there's old school RuneScape. We'll get into old school RuneScape later. Right now, we're going to be talking about RuneScape, or RuneScape 3 as it's known. RuneScape was originally
I like the original RuneScape over these the newer ones,
largely changed
but
of
I will say the new ones have interesting combat mechanics.
With a standalone client. RuneScape is a game where you can level anything by doing that thing. Level fishing by fishing, level magic by using magic. It's a grindy MMO with a staggering 20 years of content to do. As much as RuneScape has evolved past its sibling, old school RuneScape, it's still very much the old school MMO experience in a lot of ways. Slow-paced fights, basic combat, and not so state-of-the-art graphics. RuneScape did add a WoW-like ability system and a very contentious cash shop as it aged, leading to the birth of its younger, older sibling, old school RuneScape. The pay-to-win nature of the RuneScape cash shop didn't go over well with the community, and in a strange but telling twist, the classic version of the game without the same pay-to-win cash shop has ended up with far more players than the modern version. If we look at the trend for RuneScape, you can see how insanely popular it was back in the mid-2000s. Absolutely massive. If you were an MMO player and you weren't playing WoW, there was a good chance you were dabbling in some RuneScape. RuneScape has lost a lot of players in the last decade, probably many of whom went to its sibling, old school RuneScape. Number Number 8, Guild Wars 2 launched in 2012 on PC. Guild Wars 2 is rising 2 places on the list, from number 10 to number 8. Guild Wars 2 had an explosive launch back in 2012.
I have this game, but I can never get past, what's it called? I think Heart of Thorns, I think it was called. It's just like, there's so much story and stuff, and like the journey is long. And like, it's nice, right? I like that, and that's what I was talking about earlier. But here's where the problem comes in. Whenever I try to play this game, I try to bring a friend along at least, because I want to be able to chat with them and be like, blah, 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 blah. Oh, look at that, look at this. But no, almost everyone that I know have already like gotten really far into this game or practically beat it. Practically beat as in like, you know, they're at the end game. And then the people I currently know will not play this. So I'm stuck by myself if I want to play this, and it's like the world just feels empty. It's so massive, but it also feels so empty. It's another point I would like to bring up, and it's kind of a hot take, and probably not good for this kind of game, so I don't think I'm going to bring it up. But I do kind of wish there was some way to keep more players in the same-ish areas, or like some way to where I don't have to be by myself too often.
And has since been one of the most popular MMOs on the market. Guild Wars 2 is a free-to-play MMORPG developed by ArenaNet and published by NCSoft. It's worth noting that since this was developed by ArenaNet, it won't
Hold
feel...
up, they were also published by NCSoft? Really? That's a surprise, because all I hear from NCSoft is bad things recently. Like, oh my goodness, this game is published from NCSoft, oh, it's doomed. And then this one was... But this one's great.
Like an NCSoft game. As MMOs go, Guild Wars does an excellent job of encouraging zone exploration and competition, and tried hard to break the mold of having players run from one yellow exclamation point to the next. And it largely succeeded in those efforts. If you try it out, you'll see what I mean. It's got a very unique questing experience.
I do
Guild
skip
Wars
the
2
story
features
though.
A very generous free trial. The first 80 levels are free, and the game does not feature a sub.
I'm more for the
even
gameplay
one
than
of
the
those
story.
quote-unquote optional subs. So when it says that you can play it for free, it means it. After the first 80 levels, there is a lot of great content to be had in the expansions, however those will need to be purchased. And these expansions definitely house the best content in the game. It's here where you'll be able to interact with the game's amazing gliding and mount systems that Guild Wars has become so known for.
Yep.
They did recently overhaul their new player experience a bit for their Steam launch, which has allowed you to get access to the first mount in the game very early in the game,
Really?
as opposed to waiting
that's
until
awesome.
you purchase the first expansion at level 80. This was a great change because it's very important for players to get a feel for what those mounts are going to be offering them down the road, and why they're so unique. The mounts in Guild Wars 2 are better than in any other MMO, and its lack of a rigid trinity of tank, healer, and DPS have made it a unique entry into the genre. The Guild Wars 2 main story quest is all entirely voice acted. Both your character and many of the characters that
Still
you
not gonna
interact
watch
with
it.
are voiced. This adds a lot to the story as you get to see and hear your character laugh and cry and go through all of the emotions that dialogue boxes are never able to convey. One of the most memorable parts of Guild Wars 2 is its world events, where upwards of 100 players group up to take down dragons the size of skyscrapers. These fights
that's
are
practically
truly a sight
endgame
to behold,
events.
and it's really cool to see that many people in the community all get together to take these things down. How is Guild Wars trending? Over the last 5 years, this 2012 MMO's population has been holding strong, if not growing a little. There are a couple of big things that are keeping this MMO from being more popular than it is, but the things that it does right, it does so incredibly well that it's worth checking out. Number 7, Elder Scrolls Online, released in 2014.
Oh my god, I forgot I have this game. I actually forgot I have this. You know what? I tried to play this. It's actually pretty cool. I like this. The only problem is I'm a scaredy cat. I could somehow play once human, but I can't play this. I think it's the fact that it allows you to go in first person mode, and I always scare myself because some enemies are really creepy. It was either that or because the game was too hard. It was one or the other. But I thought it was super cool. Like, for instance, let's say once human had first person mode, I don't think I'd be able to play that by myself anymore. I think I would, like, run out the room.
Mac, Xbox, and PlayStation. Elder Scrolls Online has just dropped its well-received Gold Road expansion. This expansion added scribing and some great new rewards. Elder Scrolls Online is a beautiful theme park MMO set in the Elder Scrolls universe and takes place about 950 years before Skyrim, and features the trinity of tank, healer, and DPS.
Now that I have more self-control, I probably can stop playing this in first-person mode.
For you to enjoy. There are 3 tiers of difficulty for each type of content, allowing players to push themselves farther and farther. It definitely leans towards the casual MMO player and stands out as one of the more story-driven MMO experiences out there. Every quest, and I mean every single word of every single quest, is voice acted. ESO is buy to play with an optional sub, so if you want, you can pick up the base game and get hundreds of hours out of it. If you enjoy that, you can subscribe for $15 a month to unlock the other half of the game. Elder Scrolls Online features action combat, which is often a hate it or love it topic for players that try this MMO out. If you're used to tab targeting MMOs of old, it's going to take a little bit of time and a lot of patience to get used to this game's combat. ESO is currently celebrating its 10-year anniversary and has been giving out amazing rewards, huge expansions, and will be capping it all off with its next expansion in 2025. So expect big things to come.
Number 7 though, that's pretty good.
Chart, it seems to be maintaining its population pretty well, and the population for the game is looking very healthy. But the best part about ESO is its mega servers, which prevent the population from being fragmented, which means you won't have any problems finding other people.
That is awesome.
Sitting
I
here
like
at number
that.
7, it's easily one of the biggest MMOs in the world, and unlike the next MMO on this list,
you know what I'm thinking? A lot of these games, like, at the time, like, of course, these things didn't seem like a problem, but they are a problem now. Like, fragmented players. But if they could, like, somehow combine all that stuff into one now, I think that would make, like, one of the ultimate experiences.
It's not pay to win. Next up, sitting at number 6, we have Lost Ark, which is one of the youngest MMOs on this list and has recently seen its population size implode. In May, it had an average player base size of 55,000 players.
At least I think it is. The last time I played was a whole year ago. No. Yeah, about a year ago. A little longer than a year ago. But the game was pretty fun back then. I don't know if it's as hard now. I'm pretty sure you get like returner rewards and stuff. I still don't want to do like there's a couple things I don't want to do on there, and it's like using my ship to go to different islands because that's such a pain and how long it takes. I'd rather just teleport, but that's not a thing. There's PvP. Heck, there's even some PvP islands. So I don't like that either. There's a lot of bots, which probably changed from a year ago. But a year ago, there was so many, I did not know what was happening. What else? No, that's about it.
On at any one time. In June, that average has dropped down to 19,000 players. So it's effectively lost over half of its player base in 1 month. It looks like this young MMO is really starting to struggle. Still, it's holding on to the 6th slot on the list, so it's no slouch yet. Lost Ark is a free-to-play, top-down MMO RPG that launched in the East in 2019 and finally here in the West in 2022.
I might give it a shot again.
Diablo meets Final Fantasy meets a Las Vegas casino. It has a cash shop and a gear progression system that will frequently remind you of its Eastern MMO roots. The game is absolutely pay to win, or if you prefer, we can call it pay for power, but to its credit, it is also one of the few major MMOs that you can choose to play for completely free. And I'm not talking about those MMOs you can try for free. You can legitimately...
Yeah, it's one of those games where it's, you can pay to progress faster, but it's not pay to progress. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not getting gated.
Access and play the entire game.
It's just a soft lock instead of a hard lock.
And the determination to push through
you can bust through that door.
Monetization that comes with it. There are more currencies than you can count, and your gear progression involves multiple layers of gambling.
That's still one of my favorite things in this game. It's like the Monster Hunter-esque thing where like there's a map that you kind of try to find the enemy, like one enemy, and you fight that. I mean, there's like mobs every now and then as well, kind of like every Monster Hunter game. But it's like a top-down Monster Hunter where you go and chase the enemy, fight it, it'll run away. Then you go and fight it again in another spot, and you get to do that with like, I think it was 3 other players. I think that was actually one of my favorite modes to do in this.
Despite its top-down view, it does feature dungeons and raids, and these are definitely some of the most popular content in the game. The ultimate goal in Lost Ark is to sail around the world, collect all of the things, and increase your character's power. The sailing is a lot of fun, especially early on when you first access it. Lost Ark's weaknesses are definitely going to be its pay-to-win monetization and the sheer number of bots that seem to infect it. One of Lost Ark's biggest strengths is its combat, and a lot of the players will tell you that the combat is extremely satisfying. On top of that, the game has a wide variety of classes, with more on the way, each with their own look and feel to make sure that anyone can find the right class for them. If we look at Lost Ark's trends, we can see the interest in Lost Ark exploded in 22 when it launched in the West, and then quickly dropped back down to reality after the initial hype. It has fallen a long way since then, but still remains above some heavy hitters like Guild Wars 2 and ESO. Sitting at number 5 is Black Desert Online, released in 2015 and is available on PlayStation, Xbox, Windows, iOS, and
the worst part about this game, before we even get into it, is that it's a PvEP, PvP to progress game, which is also pay to win. Those are the words you would never want to hear for an MMO. A game where like you can do PvE content, but you will get locked because of PvP. And you have to go through like PvP-esque areas. And not only that, but you pay for better gear. And that better gear helps you prevent more in the PvP section as well as PvE. Do you see where I'm going with this? Not only is that like a tragic way to do these games, but it also makes like a toxic community between players and being like, I have more money than you, or I'm more I got more resources than you kind of thing. And then it just gives people this weird ego and entitlement, which I very much dislike, because you ever catch those people in real life, you'll just see they're just like on the floor, practically just, they don't even get to eat McDonald's, let's just say that.
Android. Moving up one position from the last time I made this list is
Most of them.
Black Desert Online. If you ask someone why they like BDO, they will almost certainly tell you that it's the combat, that and how beautiful the game is. BDO is an open world game with very little in the way of instance content. You don't play BDO for dungeons and trials. You play BDO to kill things out in an open world, often for hours on end just to gain a few % of a level. BDO is
and then you would make a new character because you don't want to go progressing past a certain point because people are going to kick your butt.
Go out and grind type of game. It's also important to note that it's an always on PvP game. Once you hit 50, the PvP is on. Anyone can kill you at almost any time. This is definitely one of the more unique features of the game that makes it popular among PvP players. BDO has some pretty negative associations here in the West thanks to its previous publisher making the game overly pay to win with some pretty heavy-handed monetization on top of that. But since the developer has parted ways with that publisher, they have undone a lot of the less popular aspects of its monetization, making it possibly worth looking into again if you haven't recently. BDO features a ton of unique classes and continues to actively update the game, but how is the game's
The thing is, the way I handled this game to avoid PvP, I soft-locked one of my characters at 49. And obviously the game didn't like that because I lost my account. But I basically did that for like the longest time I've played. I even paid for like cute armor that helps with life progression skills, and I wouldn't get attacked by other people because, well, I was at 49, not 50, so I couldn't even get attacked. So there was that. But because people started noticing that, they started a witch hunt against me, which caused me to not play the game anymore and also lose my account. Because whenever I would get on, people would stalk me. Whenever I'd get off, people would stalk my social medias and stuff. So what ended up happening was I just stopped playing the game entirely. I tried going back to see how it was. I could not, so I made a new account. With that new account, there's like seasonals and whatnot. Pretty cool, pretty cool. But then I realized I don't want to start over all that progression and stuff that I've done on my last character. So now all I do is try out new gameplay styles and be like, oh, this is fun, but I'm still fighting the same enemies, blah, 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 blah. So I would play a bit, jump off, play a bit on a different character that just comes out, quit again, and that's it. It's like jumping on an old game where you know all the fights, but they add like a new class. That's exactly what this is, and it sucks because I can't progress.
Population trending as of late. The population seems to be holding on. In fact, BDO seems to have
It's like one of the only
of
ways that casuals can play that game.
Player, recent expansions have added a lot of questing and PvE content if you're into that sort of thing. Next up at number 4.
Maple Story, let's go!
Available on PC. Almost like an indestructible cockroach surviving a nuclear blast.
Cockroach? No, this game is great.
Number 4 on this list. After being caught lying to its players about drop rates for items they were spending real money to gamble for, it still sits here at number 4. MapleStory launched in 2003 in the East and
I'd like for them to explain that one.
This is another game that was a gateway into the MMO scene for a lot of modern day MMO players. It was immensely successful and still manages to stay relevant nearly 2 decades later. So far, the game has reached over 260 million registered users worldwide.
Number 4 though.
And over 3 billion in lifetime revenue. To put that into perspective, the only MMO that comes close to having had that many people try it is World of Warcraft. It's got around 42 different classes for you to try and offers an incredibly unique and accessible experience.
Well, the experience is nice and all, but there's still a couple problems with this game that has never changed. You get a temporary pet that allows you to pick up items. Once that pet disappears, you have to like do this weekly grind and stuff in order to have a chance to get a pet that you can use a reset on its lifespan, and then it forces you to keep playing like that and keep doing certain content in order to have a utility to pick up other stuff, which sucks. But not only that, but classes in the game, sure, they all kind of look different visually, but a lot of them play similar, and it is tragic. But there's only so many different ways you could spin gameplay combat.
In other words, it runs on a toaster, and it's got 2 decades worth of content, so there's plenty for you to do. How did the charts look? Well, here we see this 20-year-old MMO.
Also, I wish there was a skip button for like the story and stuff. Some stories you can't skip.
Out modern staples in the genre like RuneScape 3, BDO, and Guild Wars 2, which is pretty impressive for a 2-decade-old entry. Continuing to hold down the 3rd position is Old School RuneScape, launched in 2013.
Okay, I feel like this is a cheese. I feel like this is just a cheese to cover because we already talked about RuneScape and Old School RuneScape. This is... Okay, let's just see what they have to say.
Continued to climb in population size as if it was completely unaware that MMOs are supposed to become less popular with age. You can either play this game on any computer less than 20 years old or your phone. The system requirements are so low that this is probably
you can play on your phone?
MMO out there, and I think it owes a lot of its success.
That's actually kind of cool.
On top of that, Old School RuneScape is a game run by the players, with each significant change voted on by the player base. Old School RuneScape launched as a result of the community not loving some of the changes that were made to the game. Retail RuneScape added WoW-like abilities and a cash shop that many accused of introducing pay-to-win to the game, and so the community begged the developers for the creation of Old School RuneScape.
I may give Old School RuneScape a shot again.
Servers that were based on a 2007 version of the game. RuneScape does not have the player follow a linear storyline, but instead has the player choose their own path through the game. Players can choose to kill monsters, go off questing, or level up one of their many different skills. Old School
RuneScape is more like before isekai anime was a thing, at least anime-wise, Old School RuneScape basically felt like an isekai. You're basically living a double life. That's what Old School RuneScape felt like.
RuneScape is a make the numbers go up game. You skill up, you level up your crafting, your sword wielding.
Like you choose
fishing,
what to do, but you're living in the game.
You can level it up, and a lot of people love doing exactly that. RuneScape is a very sandboxy MMO that allows for a lot of AFK skilling, and thanks to its slow pace and incredibly low computer requirements, it's very accessible. It's got some pretty involved quests that would be near impossible to figure out without the help of add-ons and guides, and it is as old school
I don't
as it
use
gets,
add-ons
with a very clunky
or guides.
combat system and user interface. It will definitely take some patience and getting used to if you're going to be trying it for the first time in 2024. Old school RuneScape has been so successful that its active player count has now far eclipsed retail RuneScape and a lot of other MMOs.
That's actually awesome.
If we
I
look
love
at how
that.
the game is trended on Google, we can see its impressive growth over the years. By the numbers, it appears that old school RuneScape has held on to the 3rd spot, and at times it had even passed number 2. Pretty impressive for being born from a browser game that was released in 2001.
Woo!
You can dismiss its success and say that it's all bots, but once again, that would fail to explain its massive presence on Google Trends. Number 2, and perhaps the most surprising upset on this list, is going to be the fact that World of Warcraft has been dethroned.
What the whew, that is a nice character. Sheesh.
Though likely only temporarily. Sliding to number 2 is
Yeah,
World of
am I
Warcraft.
right?
Most likely, a lot of WoW players are taking a break from WoW to play the MMO sitting at number 1 this month, before they return to WoW. The lead up to Dragonflight propelled WoW far above Final Fantasy XIV, and it held on to that spot until Final Fantasy XIV dropped its Dawn Trail expansion. Public opinion of World of Warcraft has massively improved since its self-inflicted wound that was Shadowlands. Now,
Okay,
with Chris
well, here's
Metzen
the
at the
thing.
helm,
Here's the thing. It's dropped the player base right now, but from what I saw, a lot of people don't like Dawn Trail after playing it. Like, there's so much, I don't know if the word controversy quite covers it, but I see more people playing WoW right now than Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail.
Community has high hopes for a return to form. With the first of 3 announced expansions releasing later this year, it's going to be a massive year for World of Warcraft, with some players clocking in nearly 20
Also,
years
Buzz
play.
Off. The game's
It's a testament to
totally
the massive
different.
appeal this game was
Like,
able
why
to
do they
garner.
keep comparing
World of
each
Warcraft
other?
is a massive,
I would play both if I
seamless
could.
MMO that still handles scale better than any other MMO I've played. You can see a location, a mountain, a castle, multiple zones away, and get on your mount and fly there. This is something that a lot of MMOs created well after World of Warcraft are still unable
Let me guess. Number 1 is Final Fantasy, right?
to deliver on.
He kind of already said it.
Broken down into smaller zones with rampant load screens in between. WoW still looks great thanks to an art style that has aged incredibly well over the years, and perhaps more importantly, numerous engine overhauls that have kept it feeling somewhat modern despite being 2 decades old. World of Warcraft features the trinity of tank, healer, and DPS, and has 13 unique classes, each with multiple different specs for you to spec into. There's a lot of single player content for you to level your way up with, as well as dungeons and raids. WoW's dungeons and raids are among the best out there, but be prepared to devote a good chunk of time to them, as they're quite a bit longer than in other MMOs. So what does interest in WoW look like according to the trends? You can see on this graph how WoW absolutely dwarfs the competition in its prime back in the early 2000s. Looking at its popularity from 2004 to 2012, nothing else even comes close. When we look at the last few years, WoW usually still sits at the number 1 spot, but Final Fantasy has reached a point where it's able to pass it during its expansion launches. This titan of the industry is still just that, a titan in the industry, but it's not the untouchable titan that it once was. And number 1, Final Fantasy XIV, released in 2010, available
I
on
may sound like I'm criticizing Final Fantasy XIV a lot, but I do like the game. Like, aesthetic-wise, gameplay-wise and everything, I like it. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not like a follow without reason kind of person. I have so many reasons as to why I'm not playing it now compared to when I played it almost daily for 2 to 3 years.
PlayStation, PC, and Xbox. Right now, the most popular MMO in the world is
A lot
Final
has to do with
Fantasy
latency and the
14.
same
This game has
gameplay
earned this
aspects.
spot by devoting itself to improving the quality of the content it released for 14 years in a row. But perhaps
And my
just as important is the
Pugilist,
fact
you know
that
what
it
I mean?
treats its community better than
poor
any other MMO
Pugilist.
out right now. And that mentality has clearly paid huge dividends for Square Enix. The new Dawn Trail expansion propelled Final Fantasy to the number 1 spot, adding 2 new classes, a ton of new zones, and starting a brand new storyline after wrapping up the previous 10-year story during the Endwalker expansion. Final Fantasy XIV continues to be a story that gives hope to rocky MMO launches today. You can fix an imperfect MMO if you're willing to listen to the feedback of the community and put the work in, but you have to
You say that, but they don't really... They listen to a bit of the things that they agree with and some things that they don't agree with, but a lot of people like show interest in. But some things are still kind of just left, or like they make excuses about. So just saying, it's a half half C kind of situation.
Resist the urge to over monetize your MMO. Final Fantasy XIV is a fantasy MMORPG that places a massive focus on the story. The single player story content comes first, and every piece of the game that follows is built in service to that end. The dungeons are unlocked as part of the story. The trials are unlocked.
You know what's funny? A lot of my old videos, like if you type in my name plus Final Fantasy XIV, you'll see like my stuff from all the way back. Like, of course, there's gonna be a lot of stuff I unlist or delete because they weren't looking so hot. But like, I pretty much like recorded so much stuff back then. It was pretty insane. I didn't really do too much commentary back then either, though. It was mostly no commentary stuff. But you could definitely tell I enjoyed my time because I would even listen to like side quest story.
And woven into the story. Some of the most memorable cutscenes in the game are delivered in the middle of a trial while you're fighting for your life. Final Fantasy XIV also features 22 different classes and the trinity of tank, healer, and DPS. Final Fantasy XIV has one of the most generous free trials out of any MMO, allowing you to play the first 70 levels and the first 2 expansions for completely free. After that, you do have to buy the game and pay the mandatory $13 a month subscription.
I will also say this. You won't be able to use free trial anymore if your account is registered to an account that's already bought the game. Even when the sub ends, you have to have another account if you want to be able to do the trial and stuff. It sucks, but that's just how it works.
Thanks to this mandatory sub, however, the game is free of pay to win. It's free of loot boxes, and it has hundreds of cosmetics and mounts that you can earn by playing the game. 2024 has been an incredible year for Final Fantasy XIV, but will it be able to hold on to the #1 spot? We'll check back in 6 months at the beginning of 2025 and find out when we update this list. If we look at how
I told myself I was going to play Dawn Trail, but then the moment it came out, I still haven't even touched it. That's crazy, huh? Like, it's not that I don't have time, it's just I don't have that interest right now. And I don't know why. Is it just... Am I done with the hype of Final Fantasy XIV? Or is it because it's just a whole new story? I just don't want to get into it right now, and I thought Endwalker was like the end of the game. Like, I felt like that was the end of the game. I don't know. I feel like others are in the same boat as me, but I'd like to know your guys' opinion.
T14 has been trending. It's been battling
why
WoW
are
for
you
the
playing
top
Dawn
spot for the
Trio?
last few years.
Let me
But
know.
with WoW's
Or
World
why
Soul
are you
Saga
not?
around the corner, holding on to the #1 spot is going to be tough. We have seen some massive upsets in 2024 with popular MMOs clawing their way to the top.
Okay, that looks like that was about it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you could, leave a like, go to their video, drop a like, show them also the support. I hope you guys didn't dislike my hot takes too much, or maybe you guys did. But I hope you guys enjoy your day or night or whatever, and I'll see you guys next time with more gaming news. Bye.